Homework is the third episode of Season 7 of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by Halvorson, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the events of the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. Really enjoyed it, really good fun episode, some really brilliant moments, and I will highlight those as we go through. I don't know how I feel about the ending. I'm not saying it's a bad ending, absolutely not, but I kind of, on the one hand, agree with their decision, but also I want something different, and I'd love to know what you think, if you agree with me or if you have any solid thoughts, but we'll get there when we get there chronologically. Ray comes home and Debra tells him to help with Ali, to help with her homework, and he's about to leave because he doesn't want to do this, but he ends up doing it, and it turns out that Ali has a lot of homework. And later that night, Ray rolls into bed, which is a funny sight because usually Ray is in bed, eager for sex. Debra is the one who's exhausted from the day and she doesn't want to know. So a bit of role reversal there, while Debra's just sitting up in bed, enjoying some time to read. And I thought it was a really interesting moment, and Ray obviously is not loving this. And he's going on about how Ali has too much homework, and he says offhand he's going to talk to the teacher. And Debra says, okay, you should. There's an open school night. And he does. We cut immediately to this open school night. And the teacher is walking around the classroom. And we also have parents walking around. They're looking at the children's dioramas and things. Ray had to help Ali make a diorama. And we then meet Miss Purcell, played by Kimberly Scott, and she announces to the parents that there will be a mural that they're putting together, so the children will be able to work over Thanksgiving break on their contribution to this mural. The parents' faces say it all. They are horrified because they know what that means. That means the parents will be doing homework over Thanksgiving break. And Ray eventually speaks, and he suggests that this is too much. This is too much homework. And what I found really interesting with this is that Miss Purcell is quite eager for Ray to talk with the curriculum review board. Apparently they welcome parents' input, and she seems really eager to reduce her workload because, yes, teachers do set a lot of homework, but the episode is highlighting that it might not be the teacher's decision. They may not get to decide how much homework they set. And as we can see, this is clearly down to the review board. And she seems kind of eager for Ray to say something, because when teachers say it, apparently the curriculum review board thinks that they're just trying to get out of work. But if it comes from a parent, that's obviously not the case, even though technically Ray is motivated by the fact that he doesn't want to do all of the work. So, fair enough. We then cut to Ray and Robert playing a video game at Ray's house. Debra confronts him as he hasn't gone through the curriculum stuff like he was supposed to. Ray makes a joke about buying nose hair clippers, which I don't know if it was, but it seemed ad-libbed. It was a really brilliant moment, and Robert's response was great. Robert does a great zombie hunter impression, and then Ray is about to tackle the forms, the paperwork, and Debra goes to bed. And then Ray gets a thought, and we cut immediately to Ray over the road with Marie, who is helping him doing the paperwork. And this scene is brilliant. I loved how this played out. It's so funny. And Ray is not really that interested in doing it. He wants Marie to do everything, but she's, of course, asking him these questions. But Ray is distracted. He's chasing Frank around the kitchen to try and get a slice of pie. And it was kind of sweet because it's kind of like we got a taste of what it might have been like with Marie helping young Ray with his homework when he was at school. And, well, if his behaviour was anything like that, it would have driven Marie up the wall because he was not paying attention. And then he admits he never read Tom Sawyer. And then Marie gets frustrated about prepositions. So she just says, fine, I will fill in these forms because I clearly care more about education than you do, which I think is probably true. I think that's an accurate statement, and this is such a brilliant moment. Marie is filling out the forms. Ray, not a care in the world, is leaning against the counter next to Frank. It's a lovely scene, side by side, eating pie, and Debra comes over. Has she just left the children on their own? I've just realised the children are on their own. I know they're only over the road, but still. And she comes over, and their faces are fabulous. But then Debra says something that I think is really important, because she points out that Ray never cares about anything. And clearly he doesn't care enough about this to actually do the work. And she says to him, and I quote, "When will something be important enough for you to take a stand?" And I thought that was a pretty powerful moment. I thought that line was very well delivered, and it clearly sat with Ray for a moment. And we then cut to the board meeting, and it's Ray's turn to speak, and I actually think he did a really good job. He kind of fumbled a little bit and maybe said some things that were unnecessary, tried to make a joke and it didn't land, but he then said this, and I thought this was so beautiful. We're so worried about them having a future that we're taking away their present. And it's so true, because children don't have time to be children because they have so much homework. I should point out I'm very much pro homework, but I think there's a limit. I don't think getting homework at the end of every single class, pretty much every single day, is necessary. Particularly when children might not even do the homework themselves. Homework is obviously to improve, or to prove rather, that they understand what they learned in class outside of a classroom setting. But there's no guarantee they're doing the homework themselves. Particularly when it's things like maths, where it's factual. Obviously, if it's something like English, writing, you can tell a child's writing style, and if it changes in their homework, they probably haven't done it. But maths is maths. It's numbers. Things that are factual, it's just a correct answer or not. And homework doesn't necessarily prove anything, because you can't prove in every case that they're the ones doing the work. So what is the point? So again, I'm pro homework, but to a point. And I think Ray made a really, really strong, valid point there. And many children don't get the chance to be children. And it was a really, really powerful moment, and I think it was a really beautiful thing to include. He then goes home, and Marie is helping Ali with her homework, and she gives Ray a copy of Tom Sawyer. And he's not interested in reading it, but he realizes he has to, because she proves to him that she read a sports book that he mentioned, because his argument was, well, I've read these sports books and you haven't, so why is it a big deal that I haven't read Tom Sawyer? And yeah, Marie started firing sports facts at him, and it was a really lovely moment. I think that was really important as well. For her to make him read that book, she couldn't be a hypocrite and say, well, I'm not reading a book that you think is important. So I really liked that moment. I thought that was really, really beautiful. And the only thing that I didn't like, as I said, is the ending, but I don't necessarily disagree with it. We don't get a conclusion. We don't know if the curriculum board decided to reduce homework. And I will say the show never really argued the benefits of getting a lot of homework. It did seem to be quite one-sided of anti too much homework. And I don't have a problem with that, but if you are pro lots and lots of homework, then you might think it was not evenly weighted and they should have done a better job of arguing both sides. But obviously, when I'm in agreement with Ray for the most part, I'm not really going to think that it was balanced incorrectly. But again, that's purely my opinion. But the show never took a final stance by showing the exam board taking away some of the homework. And maybe that's a good thing, because maybe that's an unrealistic outcome. Maybe that would give unrealistic expectations. I'll be honest, and I could be wrong, but I can't imagine Ray's speech would have been very effective, because I don't think the curriculum board will care. I could be wrong, and that may sound heartless, but I don't think they would change it. Maybe down the line they will. I imagine the response would be something to the effect of, well, we'll look into implementing this for future years. I imagine they'd have a kind of get out clause like that. We are doing it. We are paying attention, but we don't have the time to do it now. Or it's too late into the semester to do it now. That's their argument, in my opinion. I can imagine them saying that. So if they were to come out and say, yes, we agree, we'll reduce homework, it would be setting up some unrealistic expectations. It may not be believable, but I wouldn't want them to say, no, we're not doing that. So maybe by leaving it open-ended, it is for the best. But as a viewer, watching this for entertainment, I really needed that satisfying conclusion. So again, I don't disagree with the ending, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it. But the rest of it was great. I think it raises some really, really important points. Again, yes, it probably was more one-sided, more heavily weighted towards children get too much homework, which I think honestly is probably the majority in terms of the common belief, because as we see here, even teachers might think it's too much and their hands are tied. There's nothing they can do about it. I imagine most teachers don't want to spend all their evenings marking homework. Again, some homework I think is very beneficial, and some children as well just also work better outside of a classroom environment. They might work better in their home or in a library or in a group homework setting. So I think there is value, but I think the episode showed that there's such a thing as too much homework. But again, if you were to argue it was maybe a little one-sided, fair enough, but I really enjoyed it. Didn't love the ending, but I don't disagree with the ending, and ultimately I think Homework is a really decent, really fascinating episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.